your peak performance through flexible warehouse robotics, right? So just a little quick introduction of Geek Plus and what we do. Essentially, we are a provider of robotics automation solutions, specifically for warehouse automation operations. Right, so let me check if this works. All right, yes, so I spoke about this. So the company, a little bit of company history, right? We were only founded about 10 years ago. So this last year was our 10 years anniversary. Our headquarters is based in Beijing, China. And over the years, we have expanded globally in the rest of APAC, Europe, and also North and South America, right? So just as recently as last year, we were listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So that also signifies a new phase of growth for the company in the years ahead. Now, in terms of the number of AMRs, or autonomous mobile robots deployed globally, so currently Geek Plus is considered one of the market leaders for this segment. And we do have a very high repurchase rate with our customers, which is a testament to the reliability and the resilience of our systems. Right, and as of this moment, we have more than 850 projects worldwide and still growing. And also a snapshot of our global footprint. Maybe the slide here isn't very clear, but most of our activities remain in the Asia-Pacific region. We also have our own factory that produces all our robots, actually, all built to order for every project. And they ship globally to around the world. But of course, in managing our supply chain efficiency, we are also considering another manufacturing plant outside of China, right? But that will be in the news to come. Right, but a little bit more about what I'm speaking on today. So I just want to highlight some of the key pain points for retail fulfillment, right? So essentially, there are a couple. Of course, one of them is the need for flexibility, because a lot of times you have different SKUs, different seasonal peaks or demands, right? So you need a lot of flexibility in handling a lot of this, pressures and demand, right? There's also the issue of labor, right? I think labor is always a touchy subject for everyone. I think in this day and age, right, the turnover, especially for warehouse operators, are very high, right? So it's tough to have transferable best practices, to maintain a consistency, for labor operations, right? And of course, there is also about flexibility-wise, once again, in this ever-changing geopolitical situation, right, there's a need to, maintain flexible, right, in terms of the rise and fall of demand, maybe changing every couple of months. So why there's a need to evolve, right? Of course, it's not just about the volume capacity, but also requires a lot of resilience and adaptive systems, right, to keep track of all of the ever-changing, demand for end customers, end users, or the general consumer market, right? And labor, I talked about it earlier, right? So once again, the labor shortage will cause a lot of gaps in fulfilling, the high demand seasonal, throughput for different retailers, right? And also, maybe what was done in the past is that there's a lot of incremental, changes, incremental improvement. But I think in this day and age, that is no longer the sustainable case, right? You do need a more, thorough kind of digital transformation, right? A more serious change in order to keep up with the ever-changing times. So that's where Geek Plus come in, right? We do help our end users with a few key areas, in particular, storage, picking, sorting operations, right? So storage, what does that mean, right? Storage, we have, by using automation, a lot of times you can pack your storage a little denser, not a little, much denser, right? So there's a lot of increased space optimization. In terms of picking, having robots do the goods to person, the picking work, it allows the end users to have way more efficient maybe more efficient and productive operations, right? And lastly, on the sorting portion, this allows more accuracy in picking the parts. One of the key pain points earlier that wasn't mentioned also is there's always a lot of missed items or wrongly picked items, which causes returns, which in turn causes a lot of wasted labor, right? So automation helps with storage utilization, efficient picking, accurate sorting. Now, but how do we do it, right? So there are a lot of course, solutions and products in the market, and Geek Plus is no different, not much different, right, in terms of the hardware that we offer. But what we have is that we have a full library of different types of robot, different types of solution that sits under the same umbrella of our software, right? So the next couple of slides that I have will be mostly on the introduction of some of these products, some of the reference cases, and the concept of how they work, right? So there'll be a couple of videos, just to give you guys a better visualization of what to expect. Right, so we split our product offering for warehouse into 3 main areas: pallet to person, tote to person, and shelf to person. So pallet, tote, and shelf each represent a different type of storage medium. That depends on the end users or end customers' requirements, right? If they have large bulky items, then pallet to person is the way to go. If they have smaller items, then tote to person is the way to go. But between tote and shelf to person, this one is a little bit more on the environmental factors. Sometimes if space is not an issue, or if you're dealing with low ceiling warehouses, which we are seeing a lot in normally in places like Hong Kong and Japan, then shelf to person is probably a more suitable solution. But in Southeast Asia, where space is, I think, a premium in most parts, end users will want to optimize or fully utilize your vertical space most of the time, right? And that's where the tote to person come in, because we can go all the way up to 12 meters, right? So I'll talk a bit more about the individual. You see the video here, there's a lot of solution that we're showing. I'll talk more about each of the individual ones later on, all right? Okay, this is a very dense flow chart that you're seeing, but essentially what we want to say is automation is trying to help automate essentially the storage, picking, and also some of the inbound activities, right? Because the moment you have your SKU or your product inducted into the automation system, essentially you can treat it as a black box, right? And then just let our system run the storage and the retrieval for you. And even for the picking, you don't need your operators to walk down the aisle, look for the part, and pick the part. The robots will bring it to you, right? So you save on a lot of time being saved on searching for the item, or even the correct item, because our system will go through many checks to ensure that it's always the correct part that's being presented. All right. So of course, eventually, some of these other areas, maybe even sorting and packing, would also be fully automated. But of course, we will do it step by step as we further develop, further iterate our solutions. The first one that I want to talk about is what we call a pop pick, product, which is the name we give to this shelf-to-person system. What you see here is, we have the whole inventory space behind, the storage behind, and the innovation we have here is at a workstation, actually. So the workstation serves as the automation equipment that will work together with the AMR to present to you the bin, the specific bin that you need to pick, right? Okay, maybe I'll skip this. But essentially, this is one of our most flexible product and solution range. So the deployment time is pretty quick. We have done, some of the really fast ones, within 2 to 4 weeks. Of course, there's a lot of disclaimer here, right? If there isn't that much customization, or it is a more decently sized scale, then then this is possible. If not, sometimes it could take more than that, right? But also just to show you guys how this look like in practice, right? Essentially, this is how the pop pick station operates. We have the AMR bringing the mobile shelf with the totes to the pop pick station. There is another actuation mechanism that will retrieve the bins with a suction system, right, and then present it in front of the operator. So previously, this is actually an improvement of our previous shelf-to-person product. Previously, it was having the person to pick the bin manually. Sometimes he or she will need to climb up, to the shelf. But with this system, sorry, let me go back a little bit. So with this system, even the bin picking, the retrieval is automated, right? So at this point in time, there are quite a number of existing reference cases already. The largest ones are actually right now in the US with UPS as our partner, 3PL partner for this product. So this is still an expanding project, but there is a lot more to come. Okay, I will skip this one and I'll go on to the next product, which is the tote-to-person system. Right, so the earlier one I talked about is the shelf-to-person. The limitation for that is the height. Right, the max height you can go is about 3 meters. So if you want to go beyond that, right, you want to do more height utilization, then the robo shuttle or tote-to-person system is the way to go. We can go all the way up to 12 meters, densely packed tote bins, and the system will consist of a hybrid of a tall and a short robot. The tall robot we call it the RS, the robo shuttle. The small robot we call it the P40. So why 40? Because the max payload is 40 kilograms, right? So this is useful for if your SKUs are smaller items, maybe apparel or e-commerce or even pharmaceutical industry. And in terms of the storage density, actually this has been found to be 5 times denser, compared to a conventional storage system. But how this works, right, essentially is you have the tall robot retrieve the bin from the upper levels, bring it to the lowest level that we call the cantilever level, and the small robot will bring it to the workstation. So conceptually, it's the same as the previous shelf-to-person I talked about. All the robots operate within the inventory area, and they will bring the items, they bring the goods to the workstation, as shown here. So also just to show one of the existing use case, this is another one in the United States actually.
Look behind us, this is a
one of our largest
installations
globally.
E-commerce here in the States 4 years ago.
And this is how it looks, fully operated. We have
okay,
not this one, but you saw the tall robots handling the totes, bringing it down to the lowest level. You have the small robots to carry it to the workstation. Right. So in terms of scalability, if you have increased throughput, the method is simply to increase the number of robots, right? So the scalability factor is, is quite robust.
The main robo shuttle is what is typically living.
Okay, so let me skip this one. Okay, now if you have much larger items, much larger items than what your tote can carry, if you do full pallet in and outbound, or if you're considering between, say, an ASRS system, then the SkyCube or our pallet to person is something you can consider. So instead of using the cranes in an ASRS, what we're doing here is that we are using a 4-way shuttle robot that moves in between, underneath, right, each of these pallets, to shift them, to move them for storage and also for retrieval. Right, so the storage density is higher because you can pack it denser without the crane aisles, and in terms of the redundancy or the points of failure, there's way less. Right, so but conceptually, once again, it's the same. Right, we have the workstations here, the robots, the automation system will in effect bring your full pallets to the station. You can do carton pick, piece pick, or even pallet pick aside from just full pallet in and outbound. Right. So we are seeing this most with some of our 3PL partners that have deployed this. We currently also have a couple of projects in Singapore already, aside from several in APAC. This product range is also suitable for cold chain, right? So we have also one project deployed in Hong Kong for a cold chain, project, right? That goes all the way down to negative 25 degrees C, right? So okay, this one I talked about earlier. This is the cold chain project I'm talking about, right? This is the one with Tahuhu, which is is a cold chain logistics operator based in Hong Kong. So we've deployed this SkyCube solution for their cold chain warehouse, right, to handle frozen food items. Now, I also have, the next slide will be a video to kind of show you guys how this looks like. So the warehouse was built, this is a greenfield project, essentially, right? And later on, you'll see the kind of the process flow into the storage area. So induction of the pallet. Right, and then the robot will bring it into the airlock, and then the airlock will transfer it to a four-way shuttle. Four-way shuttle bring it to the storage location. Right, and then for outbound is the other way around, essentially. Right, so outbound they do picking. It can be pick to order, right, or pick to pallet, load onto the truck, and off they go. Right, so this is one example of the cold chain operation we have. Now, earlier the solution I talked about was mostly the goods to person system, but aside from that, we also have different types of robots. One of which is our smart sorting robot sorting solution. So for sorting robots, this is mostly used with postal services or e-commerce players. It can act independently, or it can also work in complement with a cross-belt sorter. Right, so just some visual to kind of have an idea of how it looks like.
E-commerce order, the sorting system can integrate with the picking system to increase efficiency and productivity. First, the picking robot will carry the rack to operators for batch order picking.
Okay, so once the item is picked, right, we go into the sorting area. The operator will put the item, the parcel onto the robot, right, and then our system will decide which destination to send to. So the destination is decided beforehand. Sometimes they can change dynamically as well, depending on how the system is configured. So instead of having a fixed infrastructure like a cross-belt sorter, you are doing it with more flexible robots. Right, so the benefit of this is once again, scalability. Right, if the throughput increase, you can simply increase the number of robots, or for whatever reason, if you want to relocate or there are certain changes to the layout, it's also much easier to shift it. Okay, maybe let me move on. So we do have one quite high-profile reference case that we have with Asda, which is a customer we have in the UK. Right, so they're using this solution for the parcel e-commerce operations, parcel sorting to destinations, right? And then last but not least, we have the moving solution that we call Instant Move. So moving solution is very simple, right? As the name implies, it's just moving from point A to point B. Typically, this is more common for our manufacturing customers, right? Because in their production floor, they have a lot of repetition with heavy items. But we also see some use cases in warehouses, especially if you're talking about sometimes maybe existing ASRS system, you have the full pallet coming out and you need to move it to another processing area, packing or shipping area. That process can also be automated with this moving robot. That's one example, right? So also another video to kind of have a look. It's quite straightforward, right? Just point to point B movement. But in terms of the navigation, it can be with QR code or with the LiDAR SLAM system, or both, right? Depends on customer preference or depends also on the requirements. So SLAM is useful if you have a shared path. Sometimes a more chaotic environment. QR code would be more suitable if it is a designated lane that you want it to be more precise in the drop-off and pick-up points. Yeah, so the moving robot comes in different form factors. We have the flat, low-lying one for going under the pallet. We also have the bigger forklift version, for pallet handling. Okay, so that's the gist of the moving. I won't go too much into it. Now, over the past year, Geek Plus also has been developing new products or new innovations within our product roadmap. And one of the latest ones that we have launched late last year is actually our robot arm picking station. So earlier, if you've seen all the videos and slides so far, you always notice that at a workstation, you need someone to do the actual picking, right? Even if the robot brings the part to you, you still have to have someone to do the picking. So that is also one of the last mile actions that we want to automate, right? And that's why we have the robot arm station to automate even at the picking level. But of course, right now there are still some limitations to it, but we are further iterating that. So for one, the arm itself is not the actual innovation. It's more of an off-the-shelf item. The real technology or innovation happens in the vision system that we have developed. So this is based on pre-trained data, especially for FMCG items. So the system is able to discern between different SKU, different shapes, and to pick out the right part. So I think it's always better to have a visual. So this is the video of our latest product. So this has to work in conjunction with some of our existing robots. The short P40 robots, as you see here, brings the tote to the station, and the arms picks accordingly. And then that's the vision system we have. It will discern between different SKU, depth perception, and all that. And right now, the end effector is also one of our innovation. The end effector, or the gripper, as some of more layman term. But of course, once again, there are some limitations. Payload-wise, we cannot go over 2 kg. Of course, that might change in the future as we develop further. And the end effector currently uses more of a suction model, pneumatic suction model, to pick up the item. Okay, so that's the gist of it. I think if you want to see the whole video, we have a YouTube channel, everything is there. Maybe let me skip ahead a little bit. Right, in terms of course, it's not all about hardware. The system architecture is also a very key component of our solutions. Essentially, we will need our customers to have a WMS system already so that we can integrate our WES with the WMS. Now, in terms of what Geek Plus supplies, we have the RMS, WES, and IOP. RMS is essentially the fleet management system. So this is the layer that controls the path planning, traffic management, to avoid collisions and all that, right? WES is the one that integrates with the WMS. So this layer knows where each SKU is being stored so that it can send the message or request to the RMS to activate the robot to pick the item. And sitting on top of it, we have the IOP, which is basically a dashboard. So this dashboard, you can customize certain reporting function. You can customize maybe some KPI reporting aside from simply monitoring, right? So all this is part of our offering. Now, to summarize, I think if we go back to why we're talking about this in the first place, is because there is a lot of challenges in the traditional warehouse model. There's a lot of limitations, in terms of storage density, in terms of picking efficiency, and that is where automation solutions like the ones offered by Geek Plus will be able to help, right, in terms of productivity, driving productivity, utilizing your storage, and also keeping things resilient and flexible, right, in terms of demand spikes or not, right? So the value that a customer can gain here a lot of times is, once again, I mentioned flexibility, and also the option to scale when necessary. Okay, last few slides, just some key customers that we have. Of course, this is not this is a non-exhaustive slide, but what we want to show is that it caters to many different sectors, right, that we have experience in. And that's it. Yep, that's the introduction of Geek Plus, and also how you can scale your operations with automation solutions. Thank you, everyone.